My gambling-addicted girlfriend accused me of having an affair with our babysitter to hide her own affair, then abandoned our 4-year-old daughter to run off with a bartender. 2.5 years later, she begs for forgiveness. Hello Reddit, I really need some advice, because I feel completely lost about what to do in my current situation. I've been holding this in for so long, and I just need to get it all out. I'm 35 and have been with my girlfriend Kylie, 29, for almost 10 years. We met when she was working as a waitress at a local diner, where I used to go for breakfast before going to my construction job. She was different then, full of life, ambitious, and had this infectious laugh that could light up a room. We clicked immediately and started dating within weeks. Things moved pretty fast after that. 6 months later she moved in with me when her flatmate situation went bad. And we've been living together ever since. The first couple of years were amazing. We traveled when we could afford it, spent weekends exploring the city, and had all these plans for our future. We talked about marriage, but we both agreed that we wanted to be financially stable first. Then came Luna, our beautiful daughter, who's now 4 years old. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but it was the best surprise of my life. Kylie struggled with postpartum depression, but I thought we'd work through it together. Looking back, maybe that's when things started to change. Recently, we bought a house together. Or rather, I agreed to put the mortgage in her name. It wasn't what I wanted, but we'd been fighting so much that I thought it might make her happy. Give her some security. The house is nice. Nothing fancy, but it's in a good school area for Luna and has a backyard for her to play in. I took on extra shifts at work to afford it, which only led to more problems. You see, nothing I do seems to be good enough for Kylie anymore. When I work overtime to save more money, she accuses me of avoiding her and says I'm never there for Luna. If I cut back my hours to spend more time at home, she gets angry. She gets angry that we don't save enough, and says that I'm not ambitious enough. It's exhausting. Even small decisions turn into big fights. When I go shopping, she complains that I got the wrong brands. When I take Luna to the park, she says I should have taken her to the library instead. There's no winning. But the real problem destroying our relationship is Kylie's gambling addiction. It started about 4 or 5 years ago, right after Luna was born. At first, it was just scratch cards and small bets on sports games. I didn't think much of it at the time. Everyone needs a hobby, right? But over time, it escalated to online poker and casino games. The amounts got bigger and bigger, and the frequency increased to the point where she was almost every day. I've caught her several times hiding losses for me, deleting her browser history, creating secret email accounts for gambling sites, and even hiding physical receipts from casino visits in her car. Each time I confront her about it, we end up in this cycle. She cries, promises to stop, says she's getting help, and for a few days or weeks things seem to be better. Then I discover more money missing from our joint account or new credit card charges from gambling sites. Last month was the last straw. I discovered that she had somehow maxed out a credit card that I didn't even know existed. $8,000 in gambling debts she'd been hiding. When I confronted her, instead of apologizing, she turned it on me. She said I was controlling, that she needed her own money to spend as she pleased, and that I was stifling her with my rules about money. She even dragged Luna into it, saying that my strict budgeting prevented her from buying things for our daughter. The whole situation keeps me on edge. I have to watch every word I say, every move I make, because I never know what might trigger an argument. She has become an expert at twisting my words and making me feel like I'm the problem. Meanwhile, she seems completely indifferent about how her actions affect our family. She sits on the couch for hours, playing with her phone while Luna begs for attention. Then she'll turn around and criticize my parenting, saying I'm not involved enough. What really breaks my heart is seeing how this affects Luna. Luna, she's such a bright, sensitive child. And I can tell she is picking up on the tension. The other day, she asked me why Mummy is always angry and why she doesn't want to play with her anymore. It hit me hard. Kylie used to be such an attentive mother, but now she hardly ever looks up from her phone when Luna talks to her, is talking to her. I honestly can't stand being in this relationship anymore. The constant fighting, the lies about money, the emotional manipulation. It's taking a huge toll on my mental health. I find myself volunteering for extra shifts just to avoid coming home, which only leads to more arguments about my absence. I've started having anxiety attacks at work, something I've never experienced before. But this is where I'm really stuck. I can't imagine going a single day without seeing Luna. She's my whole world. Every morning I wake her up with silly songs. Every night I read her stories and put her to bed. When she scrapes her knee or has a bad dream, I'm the one she runs to. The thought of not being there for these moments. I know that if I leave, Luna will probably stay with Kylie. Because we're not married, I usually get primary custody. I don't even think I have a legal right to ask for custody, because we never got married. I've talked to a few friends about it, and most of them say I should stay for Luna's sake. They argue that having both parents at home is good, even in a bad relationship, is better than splitting up. But I'm starting to think that might not be true. What kind of example am I setting for Luna by staying in this toxic situation? I don't want her to grow up and think that it's normal for relationships to be full of fighting and manipulation. I don't want her to think it's okay for someone to treat her the way Kylie treats me. I'm mentally from trying to keep this relationship together while protecting our finances and being a good father. I feel like I'm failing at everything, despite trying my best. I need advice on what to do next. How can I protect my relationship with Luna while protecting my own mental health? Is there any way I can get custody or at least ensure that I have regular access to my daughter if I leave? Has anyone been in a similar situation and can tell me what worked for them? What worked for them? First, I would like to thank everyone who replied to my original post. Your advice and support has helped me to see things clearer, even though the situation has taken an unexpected turn that I never saw coming. The last 2 weeks have been a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. The most disturbing change has been in Kylie's behavior towards Luna. She's always had her ups and downs as a mother, but lately, it's like she's completely checked out of parenting. She barely acknowledges Luna's presence unless she absolutely has to. Last week Luna drew a picture in preschool, a family portrait of all three of us. She was so excited to show it to Kylie. But when she tried to share it with Kylie just mumbled something about being busy and walked away. I found Luna later, crying in her room, crumpling up the drawing she'd worked so hard on. It took everything I had not to confront Kylie right then and there. Instead, I spent the evening with Luna, helping her make a new drawing, which we hung on the fridge. She was smiling again, but I could tell she was hurt. At first, I thought maybe Kylie was depressed or struggling more with her gambling addiction. I tried several times to talk to her about it. I even suggested we get her some help. But she kept putting me off with excuses about being late for work or having other commitments. That's when I started to pay more attention to her work situation. About a month ago, Kylie started working at this upscale restaurant in the downtown called the Copper Pot. She said the tips were good, and it would help us catch up with the bills, especially after the gambling debts she'd racked up. The job seemed like a positive move. She was getting out of the house. She was earning money and seemed more energetic. But then things started to get weird. Her diary was all over the place. She'd tell me she was working the lunch shift, but wouldn't get home until after midnight. When I'd ask about it, she'd claim they were short-staffed after that. She had to help with the inventory. Other times she'd say she'd picked up an extra shift. But when I called the restaurant to check on her, they'd say she'd left hours ago. We hired Darcy 24 hours a day to look after Luna during the times that both Kylie and I were working. Darcy is the younger sister of Kylie's best friend Sarah. And she's been absolutely wonderful with Luna. She's studying early years and has been really with Luna, doing art projects, reading stories, and even helping her to learn her basic numbers and letters. Luna adores her, which is a blessing, considering how distant Kylie has become. Yesterday Darcy came to see me after Kylie had left for what was supposed to be a morning shift. She looked nervous and kept fidgeting with her phone. Eventually she showed me some text messages that she'd accidentally seen on Kylie's phone when it was left unlocked on the counter. The messages were between Kylie and someone called Daniel, who apparently works as a barman at the Copper Pot. The text revealed that Kylie hadn't picked up any extra shifts. She'd been meeting Daniel during her supposed working hours. Darcy also mentioned that she had overheard several phone conversations between them while she was looking after Luna. She said the way they talked seemed very intimate. And she heard Kylie laughing in a way I haven't heard her laugh in years. What really got me was that Darcy had seen them together a couple of times when Kylie was supposed to be at work. She'd taken Luna to the park near the restaurant one afternoon and saw Kylie and Daniel having lunch in a cafe across the street. Another time she saw them walking together at the mall when Kylie had claimed to be covering someone's evening shift. I waited until Luna was asleep that night before confronting Kylie. Her reaction was not at all what I had expected. Instead of bringing up the Daniel situation or even trying to deny it, she turned the whole thing on me. She accused me of having an affair with Darcy, claiming that was the real reason I insisted on hiring her to babysit us. She went on this wild rant about how she'd seen the way Darcy and I interact, how I always praised Darcy's way with Luna, and how suspicious it was that I always paid for paying Darcy myself. The truth is, I handle the payments because Kylie has a history of gambling away money meant for bills and other expenses. But according to her, this was proof of my alleged relationship with Darcy. It was such an absurd accusation. It actually made me laugh, which only made Kylie angrier. She started bringing up random incidents as proof, like the time I helped Darcy jumpstart her car, or the time I bought her as a thank you for staying late with Luna when I got stuck in traffic. Normal, decent things that any would do for a reliable babysitter. That conversation was the last straw for me. Looking at Kylie throwing those wild accusations at me, I realized I didn't even recognize the person she had become. The house was in her name. So I told her she needs to take responsibility for the mortgage payments. From now on, I also made it clear that although I'd always be there for Luna and continue to support her financially, I can't live with someone who lies about me to cover up their own infidelity. The look of when she realized that I was serious about leaving was almost comical. It was as if she never expected me to actually stand up for myself. She tried to backtrack, claiming she was just stressed and didn't mean what she said about said about Darcy. But I'd already made up my mind. I've started looking at flats nearby. I want to stay close. Close enough that I can still see and be involved in her daily life. It's not the ideal situation. But I can't continue to live in this toxic environment. The hardest part will be explaining to Luna why Daddy won't be living at home anymore. But I really think it's better than her growing up thinking that this kind of dysfunction is normal. I need to share what happened because I still can't quite process it. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, everything changed dramatically in one day. I was at my building site, working on the second floor of a new building, when my phone started buzzing repeatedly. I don't usually answer during working hours unless it's an emergency. But when I saw several missed calls from Darcy, my heart sank. When I finally called back, Darcy was almost hysterical. Through her sobs, she managed to tell me that she had arrived at our house for her regular babysitting shift at 9 a.m., only to find Luna alone. The front door was unlocked. No sign of Kylie anywhere. And Luna was just sitting on the couch in her pajamas, watching cartoons. I'd never left a building site so quickly in my life. My supervisor took one look at my face and just nodded. When I told him it was a family emergency, the 15-minute drive home felt like hours. When I got there, Luna ran up to me like nothing was wrong. She told me about the cartoon she was watching. She said Mummy had told her to be good and watch TV until Darcy arrived. She didn't seem scared or upset. She had no idea that it was normal to be left alone. Like it wasn't normal. The kitchen was a mess, with half-empty cereal boxes and milk left out on the counter. Upstairs, Kylie's wardrobe was mostly empty, and her dresser drawers had been pulled out, with whatever was left strewn across the floor. On the kitchen counter, I found a note scribbled on the back of a petrol station receipt. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving with Daniel. Being a mother isn't what I thought it would be. Don't try to find me. I checked our joint bank account on my phone. It was empty. She'd taken all the $3,800 we'd saved. Thankfully, I'd moved most of our savings into a separate account. It still hurt to see her take what little was left. My first phone call was to the CPS. I knew I had to report this properly to protect Luna and myself. The CPS worker, Mrs. Rodriguez, came to the house that afternoon. She was surprisingly understanding when I explained the whole situation. The gambling, the affair with Daniel, and now the abandonment. That I was Luna's biological father, and that proof of stable employment and an active involvement in her life worked strongly in my favor. After the necessary checks and interviews, including with Luna's preschool teachers and our neighbors, I was granted emergency custody. The situation at home was a mess at first. Kylie had already missed 2 mortgage payments without telling me. I was worried we were going to lose the house. But surprisingly, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Considering that Kylie had abandoned both the property and her child, our lawyer was able to work with the bank to transfer the house into a trust with Luna as the beneficiary. She'll inherit it when she turns 18. And until then, I can continue to live there with her as her guardian. The bank even worked with us to modify the loan to make it more manageable on my single income. The hardest part was explaining the situation to Luna in a way that wouldn't traumatize her. How do you tell a 4-year-old that her mother chose a man she barely knew over her own child? I tried to keep it age appropriate. I told her that Mummy had to go away for a while to sort some things out, but that Daddy would always be here, no matter what. Luna was confused at first. She asked if Mummy was angry with her, which broke my heart. I made sure she knew that none of this was her fault. To my surprise, Luna has adapted remarkably well to our new routine. Children really are resilient. She still asks for her mom occasionally, especially at bedtime or when she sees other with their mothers in the park. But these moments are becoming less frequent. We've established new routines. I have rearranged my work schedule to be home for dinner every night. And we have special daddy/daughter time at the weekends. Darcy has been an absolute godsend through all of this. Not only has she continued to look after Luna when I'm at work, but has also helped Luna process everything in her own way. She's good at redirecting Luna when she gets sad about her mom. And she's helped maintain a sense of normalcy in Luna's life. Kylie's friends and family have distanced themselves from us, seemingly embarrassed by their actions. But Darcy has stuck by us. The police have been trying to track Kylie down, because technically, what she did was child endangerment. But they've had no luck. Apparently, Daniel quit his job at the Copper Pot that same day, and neither of them have been seen since. Part of me hopes they will never be found. I don't want Luna to deal with the instability of Kylie coming in and out of her life. I hadn't planned to post another update, but something happened recently that I felt I needed to share. It has been 2.5 years of complete silence. When Kylie turned up on our doorstep one Sunday morning while Luna was at her weekly dance class, the woman who stood on our porch was barely recognizable as the Kylie I had once known. Her clothes were worn and mismatched. Her hair was unkempt and she had that desperate, haunted look in her eyes. She'd lost a lot of weight, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking as she stood there. The years had clearly not been kind to her. Through tears, she told me her story. Things with Daniel had fallen apart within 6 months. He turned out to be as much of a gambler as she had been. And they'd burned through all the money she'd taken from our account in just a few weeks. After Daniel left her for someone else, she'd bounced between relationships and jobs, never staying in one place for too long. She'd even lived in her car for a while. She said she'd followed our lives on social media. My sister had apparently accepted her friend requests from various fake accounts that she had created. That's how she knew Luna had started dancing lessons, was doing well at school, and had recently won a ribbon in her first grade science fair. Kylie broke down completely when she saw Luna's school picture on the wall in our living room and said she couldn't believe how much our little girl had grown. Now she wanted to come back. She claimed that she'd changed, that she'd hit rock bottom and realized what was really important in life. She said she'd been clean from gambling for 6 months and had a steady job as a waitress in a town about an hour away. She begged for another chance to be a part of Luna's life. But as I listened to her sob and make promises, all I could think about was that morning 2.5 years ago, when she had left our 4-year-old daughter alone in an unlocked house. I thought about how Luna had cried herself to sleep for weeks, wondering what she'd done wrong to make Mummy leave. I remembered all the Mother's Day cards Luna had made at school that she couldn't give to anyone, even though Darcy always graciously accepted them when Luna offered them. I told Kylie how well Luna was doing now, how she'd got the part of honor, how her dance teacher said she had a natural talent, how she'd overcome her shyness and made lots of friends at school. I explained that we'd built a stable, happy life together, and I wasn't willing to risk disrupting that by letting someone back in who had proven to be untrustworthy. When Luna came home from dance class that afternoon, she twirled around the living room in her leotard. She showed me the new move she had learnt. I sat her down and explained that her mum had stopped by. Luna's response showed a maturity beyond her 7 years. She said she Remembered how Mummy used to make Daddy sad all the time. All the time, and how she would leave without saying goodbye. Then she told me something that almost brought me to tears. She said that she liked our life better now. Because we're always happy. And she never worry about Daddy being upset. Luna still asks about her mum sometimes. But they're different now. Instead of why did Mummy want me? She asks things like, do I look like her? Or was she a good dancer? I answer these questions honestly but briefly. Then we move on to other things. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too hard on Kylie. Kylie away. But then I remember the peace we've found in our lives. Together, the stability that Luna now. And the trust we've built between us. Sometimes the best endings aren't about forgiveness or second chances. It's about protecting what you've worked so hard to build. After Kylie left that day, I blocked all of her known phone numbers and social media accounts. I also informed Luna school and dance studio that only I or Darcy were authorized to pick her up. This may seem cold, but I've learned that sometimes being a good parent means making decisions to protect your child's well-being, even if those choices hurt someone else. Luna and I have built a happy life together. We have our routines. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday dance lessons. Bedtime stories every night. It's not the family life I imagined when Luna was born. But it's peaceful, stable, and full of love. Sometimes that's more than enough.